Waterproof socks. Meh.
Waterproof socks are legit. What changed my mind? Stay tuned and find out. So I first heard about waterproof socks when I was backpacking last winter in February with a friend of mine named John Kelley. Now, John's got a YouTube channel. I'll put a link to his channel down below in the description. But it was February in Wisconsin. There's snow on the ground. It's about 30 degrees, and John's happy as can be wearing trail runners and waterproof socks. I thought he was crazy. Everybody else was wearing boots and warm socks, but he has trail runners on and waterproof socks. Now, I still wouldn't recommend wearing waterproof socks and trail runners in snowy conditions, but I'll share with you a little bit more about that later. So in every season but winter, I wear my darn tough socks and I wear some trail runners that are not waterproof. Now, most experienced hikers know that you wear shoes that are not waterproof because they dry out a lot quicker on the trail. This past September, I was hiking down on the Colorado Trail. The temperatures dropped from 90 degrees to 30 degrees overnight, and a big blizzard blew in. Luckily, I was at a hotel, but all I had was my trail runners and my darn tough socks. I thought back to John and wished that I had some of those waterproof socks so I could finish my hike. But unfortunately, I couldn't find any for that trip, and my trip ended early. A few months later, I went to REI for something else. I saw some waterproof socks on a clearance rack and decided to pick up a pair, not knowing when I would use them. This past December, I headed down to Arkansas and finished segment hiking the Ozark Highland Trail. When I was packing for that trip, I saw that the forecast was calling for some cold temperatures, a lot of rain, and it could be miserable. So I thought, hey, this is a good time. I'm going to bring those waterproof socks along. I put them in my pack. The first couple days were cold and wet and miserable with a lot of water crossings. However, I'm just used to wearing my darn tough socks in those trail runners. So the waterproof socks stayed in my backpack. You can say I was probably hesitant to use them.
Some people may call me stubborn.
So I kept on wearing those darn tough socks, and on the third day I woke up in my hammock and I just didn't want to put cold, wet socks on. So I put on the waterproof socks just because they were dry, and I wore them that day. It was just a short day, but I could still feel the cold and the wetness around my feet, and I could swear that they weren't working. Meanwhile, my friends Miyagi and Trips, Miyagi has a YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description below. They were hiking in their waterproof socks the whole time, and they were in love with them. Recently, I was planning for another trip, this time down to the Ozark Trail in Missouri. The forecast again was calling for cold, wet weather, lots of water crossings. However, I was still skeptical of those waterproof socks. So I took them out. I went to my kitchen sink. I stuck my hand inside one of them, turned on the water just to test to see if they really were waterproof. I even sloshed them around in the water like they would on the trail, and sure enough, they were waterproof, so I packed them for my Missouri trip. So the first day of my Missouri trip, the sun was out. It was beautiful. The next day I woke up. It still wasn't raining. I started walking. Shortly thereafter, the skies opened up. It was raining for the next few days. That day, I still had my darn tough socks on, and I didn't feel like opening up my backpack in the middle of the rain to change my socks. So I sludged on, wearing my darn tough socks for plus 20 miles that day. The next day, much like my earlier trip, I just didn't want to put wet socks back on that next day. So I got out my waterproof socks, and this day it was even longer than my first trip, where I hiked all day in the rain, going through lots of creeks that were pretty high, and it was cold and it was wet, and I walked about 15 miles. And the verdict was, my feet stayed dry. Damn. John Kelley and Miyagi were right.
This
So all of a sudden, Jeremy LaCroix, the Midwest backpacker, is using waterproof socks. That's interesting. I didn't think they were worth it. Gosh, I wonder who told him that they were worth it and that they worked well. Oh, that was me. That was me. There you go, Jeremy. I told you so. I'm glad you finally jumped on board.
You know, almost one of these days you're going to listen to me. I'm Miyagi. I know things.
Oh, I hate eating crow. That being said, it's a really weird feeling wearing these waterproof socks. I mean, you can still feel that cold water on your shoes. When your shoes are wet, you can still feel that. However, your feet are still dry, so your feet will hopefully stay a little bit warmer and they're less likely to blister. While I'm saying waterproof socks are good, they aren't good in every condition. Now, I have sweaty feet. And these socks are pretty thick. They say that they breathe, but they are thick and they would be very warm. So I would not wear these socks if the temperatures were over 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Now in winter conditions, when the temperatures say between 20 degrees and 32 degrees Fahrenheit, I would still wear waterproof boots like these Solomons. And the reason I would do that is in snowy and icy conditions, it's nicer to have a bigger boot with a bigger sole that provides for better traction. Now up here in Minnesota, it gets even colder than that. So when it's below 20 degrees and you really don't have to worry about your feet getting wet because everything is super frozen, mucklucks are still my boot of choice. So if you're going to be out hiking in temperatures, say between 20 degrees and 45 degrees, and you're expecting a wet trail where things aren't really frozen still, it may be raining, you're going to be crossing some creeks, and you're wearing your trail runners, waterproof socks are definitely the way to go. I bought my waterproof socks from a company called Sealskins. Sealskins is probably the most popular brand of waterproof socks. I bought the crew length ones with my own money. They aren't paying me to do this video, but I think they are a really good product. So the socks are made out of multiple layers of material. There's merino wool and there's a waterproof membrane. You can machine wash these socks. However, do not put them in the dryer with a high heat. Just like any merino wool product, you don't want to put it in the heat, as well as that waterproof membrane could be damaged by the heat. So wash it, but don't put it in the dryer. So I put a link down in the description below of how you can buy these socks. It is for Amazon and it is an affiliate link, so it will help support my channel, but it won't cost you any more money. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you like this one, check out some of my hiking videos, and while you're there, hit subscribe, punch that bell notification, check me out on Instagram, Facebook, merch available on Teespring, and if you see me out on the trail, ask me for a sticker, and when I do see you out on the trail, hopefully you have dry, warm feet. Meanwhile, my friends who were hiking with were wearing their waterproof again. Shove them, let them need too much words. Turn on the faucet, then do the faucet. A lot of spit there. Kind of cracky on that time.
Keep rolling.
And I would not wear them above 45 degrees. I would still recommend wearing a waterproof boot. That's hard to say. I did it. Can you believe it? I did it. That's a wrap.